Welcome to SheepConnect SA's 10-minute talk on the importance of vaccinating sheep and the correct technique for achieving effective vaccination with minimal adverse effects. I'm Bart Dessart, part of the SheepConnect SA team, and today our speaker is Mary Rowe, Senior Sales Manager at Zoetis. Over to you, Mary.
Thanks, Bart. So on this slide, we have some photos which I like to present and raises the question, why do we vaccinate sheep? All of these photos show examples of diseases which have caused producers production losses on farm and or significant trimming at abattoirs. So on the top left of this slide, we have a photo of a sheep with arthritis. Arthritis costs the industry at least 39 million every year. And those losses range from losses on farm to losses in carcass weight at slaughter. The next photo along to the right is a lamb with scabby mouth. Scabby mouth causes significant lesions on many lambs, and when this happens, it impacts their ability to feed and therefore growth rates. The cost period on farm is 4 to 6 weeks. The next photo along was actually in a news report in Sydney sometime early in 2020, and a customer had actually bought a lamb leg roast and taken it home, prepared it for cooking, and then realised that it had this significant cheesy gland lesion. Things like this don't give the industry a great name, so we're looking to prevent them. The two photos on the bottom left, one being of a sheep that has died from tetanus on farm, and the one on the right, another example of cheesy gland lesions causing significant trimming at abattoirs. So for that example, the whole front half of the sheep would be removed prior to that animal being weighed and the producer paid. So if we're going to apply vaccines to prevent some of these conditions, we want to make sure we do it in a way that maximises the efficacy of the products we're using and minimises the carcass damage we're causing. A couple of years ago, we did quite a bit of work vaccinating sheep with different length needles at different sites and using different vaccinators to determine the best technique possible. This photo demonstrates how far a half-inch needle actually goes into a sheep. The vaccine has been dyed blue in this example to make it more visible and has gone through 4 layers of muscle, meaning the vaccine has been applied intramuscularly when it's meant to be subcutaneous. So in the next photo, we've used a 1/4-inch needle, vaccinated at 90 degrees, so straight into the side of the neck. The vaccine has been dyed green, and you can see we've got perfect placement there, subcutaneous. When these products are applied correctly, they are absorbed by the animal and mount a stronger and faster immune response. So if we're thinking about the types of needles we're using on farm, some producers feel the 1/4-inch needle is quite short. It is, but if you look at the thickness of a sheep's skin, it's about 3 to 4 mils. A 6 mil needle is more than adequate to get through that. In terms of the technique, vaccinating at 90 degrees makes it very easy to vaccinate animals quickly and safely. While we're discussing the vaccination side, it's worth noting that needles should be changed every packet of vaccine at a minimum and as soon as they become blunt. So if you can feel a needle entering or being pulled out of the skin, that needle is blunt. It creates a larger hole in the skin, drags in more foreign bacteria, and is more likely to cause site reactions. We need to consider vaccine storage as well. We've got 2 photos as examples here. The top one being to highlight just how much product can settle out when it's stored in the fridge. So when vaccine is taken out of storage, it must be shaken well before use. And if you're using product throughout the course of the day, give it a shake occasionally to make sure the vaccine stays in suspension. We recommend using a new draw-off tube each time you connect it to a pack. And if you use half a pack and are then going to store it back in the fridge, remove that draw-off tube and put the pack of vaccine back in its box and back into the fridge. When picking vaccine up from the reseller, we'd recommend taking some cool packs to keep that product at an appropriate temperature during transport. The photo on the bottom is an example of how a producer has stored vaccine. Obviously, foreign bacteria could enter into that pack of vaccine, and then if the product is used, we will be likely to see more site reactions. We recommend cleaning applicators regularly. This means at the end of every day. If the vaccinator is cleaned in warm, soapy water, rinsed with warm water, and then an appropriate lubricant used, the applicators will last much longer. Technique is critically important when we're using these vaccines, and these photos highlight that. So 3 of these photos show lesions that have occurred as a result of poor vaccination technique, vaccinating in the wrong site, or using dirty, contaminated, or blunt needles. These lesions have all resulted in significant trimming at abattoirs and therefore a direct cost to the producer. The photo on the bottom left is of an animal that has been vaccinated in the cheek. A secondary infection has developed and it has impacted on this animal's ability to graze and therefore weight gain. This graph demonstrates why we recommend booster doses and why timing is important. So along the bottom we have time, and up the side we have the antibody level. The antibody level varies depending on the vaccine we are using. The yellow line about an inch from the bottom demonstrates the protective antibody level an animal needs to be protected from disease. So the first time we treat an animal, they are often at landmarking. We call this the first dose, and it primes the immune system. So it triggers the immune system to recognize an antigen and to work out what antibody it needs to make to protect itself. That provides about 6 to 8 weeks protection, and then the level of response will start to taper off. This is why we give that second dose or the booster dose typically at weaning. When the animal is exposed for a second time, the immune system mounts a much stronger challenge and gives us a high level of protection for an extended period of time. When we give a booster dose prior to lambing, this boost in immune response means the ewe will put a good deal of antibody into the colostrum, and that will protect the lamb from birth until marking, which we refer to as passive immunity. If we are putting lambs into a feedlot, we frequently booster them within a couple of weeks of them being ready to go into the feedlot. This is done so that they have an extra high level of protection for pulpy kidney. So where should we vaccinate these animals? We'd recommend vaccinating high on the side of the neck and about 2 finger widths below the ear. So if we vaccinate right at the base of the ear, there is a risk of hitting that C1 vertebrae and therefore getting some site reactions. So we're coming just a little bit down from the side of the, just a little bit down from the ear, on the side of the neck, and subcutaneously with a 1/4 inch needle. We avoid vaccinating on the cheek, the throat areas, because we've got lymph nodes, we've got salivary glands, and extra blood vessels there. And if these vaccines are administered into the incorrect site, you will get a suboptimal immune response. So that wraps up the wheres and the whys of vaccination application. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary, for sharing your experience and expertise with us today.